Jennings and Jared Perkins, a Prospects Live podcast for everything MLB draft related. Join us as we discuss the biggest stories from college and high school baseball, bring you interviews from your favorite draft prospects and college coaches, and break down live looks at Prospects Live analysis across the nation. Get ready, because you're on a clock with Tyler Jennings and Jared Perkins.
Alrighty, welcome to another episode of On the Clock, the Prospects Live Amateur Baseball and MLB Draft Podcast. On the Clock is presented by Job Bats. Job Bats provides the highest quality ash and maple, handcrafted, fully custom bats, apparel, accessories, and more. Click the link below and enter the code OTC10 at checkout to get a 10% discount on your first purchase. All right, we have an awesome guest with us today. We have head coach Chris Lemonis out of Mississippi State. Coach, how are you doing today, man?
Doing great. I don't know about an awesome guest, but I haven't done too many podcasts, but I'm excited to be here. So
yeah, we're excited to have you on and talk a little bit more about Mississippi State and some of the things you're doing over there. But the first question we kind of always ask guests, just because we want to have the viewers get to know you a little bit more, just kind of go through your journey coaching and how you've gotten to Mississippi State today.
You know, mine is a little different than most. I was a college baseball junkie and really a pro baseball junkie growing up. I love the game. Got a chance to go to the Citadel. My high school coach played at the Citadel, and I got a chance to go there as an engineer on an engineering scholarship. And the funny story around here is I made it 3 years in engineering. I went from EE to PE real quick, and but I've loved it ever since. And I just knew I wanted to coach, and so I played 5 years at the Citadel. My first 2 years, I barely played on an Omaha team, but wasn't a major contributor, but had a fun time there at the Citadel. And then I got to coach there 12 years. And so I guess my big break, my college roommate was Dan McDonald at Louisville, and we had coached a long time together. He'd come over from Ole Miss to Louisville, and I got a chance to go there. And I think that probably in my career, you know, the Citadel piece was huge about work ethic and everything else, but learning how to coach a program at a national level, I think I learned there. And then I got a chance to bounce over for 4 years to Indiana and coach at a great place. I thought I was going to stay there forever, to be honest with you. Love the area, love the town, love the people, just a really cool spot. And then, but for me, how do you turn down coaching at Mississippi State and the dude? And my dad actually graduated. My family's from Mississippi. My dad graduated from Mississippi State. He was an engineer. So being able to come back, I'm not an alum, but about as close as you could be. We had the cowbell on our mantle for years and years and years. And so I understand the tradition.
Yeah, I love that. Just speaking of Mississippi State, we've gone through kind of fall baseball now. You all are coming off a 40-win season last year. What are some of the expectations for you in 2025? What are some of the things you've seen this fall from some of your guys?
Well, I really like our group. We have some really neat pieces coming back. The expectation is always to go to Omaha, you know. So, and if you didn't know them, just ask our fans. They'll tell you every year. But you know, we had a bounce back, man, after the national championship, man. We had a rough 2 seasons. And so I felt like last year got us back on track. And, you know, we had a tough first 2 weeks. We had a ton of injuries, but after that, we really got going. And after those first 2 weeks, we're one of the better teams in the country. And, 11 draft picks, which is the most in college baseball last year. It was a fun group. And then this year we got a lot of those guys back, and nowadays we had a good high school recruiting class. We had a good JUCO recruiting class. We had a good portal recruiting class. So you have all these different dynamics that kind of blend your team. And so we finished fall on last Sunday. We played Arkansas State, played really well. And, I like our group. I think we got a chance to do some special things.
Yeah, that's great. I know Tyler's going to have some questions related to the draft guys and to some of the recruits, but for the one question I want to ask before turning it over to Tyler is looking back at that national championship you had from 2021, you talked about wanting to go back to Omaha, but what was the turning point for that team that year? And then kind of what lessons have you taken away from that championship season that really helped guide you kind of with the next group?
You know, that group had been a couple times in a row. We'd gone in 19, and COVID year, we were like third in the country when it hit. So the positive going into Omaha that year is they weren't just happy to be there. You know, like that, you get that a lot of times. You're happy to be in Omaha. But it wasn't they'll probably kill me for saying we were a really good team, but there's teams that had just as much talent or more. We were just the best team. And some guys had some career years in that. And I talk to our coaches all the time. Like a lot of times in our league, it's just does somebody have a really good year for you and stays healthy and goes. So, trying to really coach on the individual level, I guess, is we try to do a little more of that day in and day out, just, getting that individual player better and more prepared for everything. But it was a fun year, and you'll never, the first one ever in Mississippi history was pretty cool to do.
That's awesome. Tyler, turn over to you.
I was gonna say, as a NC State fan growing up, would you have rather faced that nine player team, or would you have rather faced the Vanderbilt squad that you guys ended up beating?
Ooh, that's a tough one. So I got my wife's from Greensboro. The whole family goes to State. The Wolfies, I give them all a hard time all the time. And I'm actually close friends with Elliot. That was tough. That was a really, during that whole time, the year before, that year, because man, what a special. I actually had JT Jarrett coach with me the year after. So Lynx boy, JT came and coached with us and was in the middle of all that, as a player. So at the time I probably would have faced the 9, knowing that we had to face Leiter and Rocker on full rest. That was a little bit of a tough challenge, but just an unfortunate time. Hopefully we never get back to that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. But I did want to ask you about the team last year. You have one of the more unique arms in the entire universe, basically, in Sinjay. But I know he did switch pitching at some point last year. Was that like a coaching decision, or was that a player decision from him?
No, he'll tell you. We've kind of wanted to be right-handed most of the time. I mean, the left-handed's good too, but the dynamics that people don't realize, it's just so hard to keep both going. His freshman year, he struggled because every time he flipped, he threw a ball. He's right-handed, and then the next batter come up, he'd be left-handed. Every count was starting 1-0. Well, in the history of the game, what's the most important pitch is strike one. And so he was just always behind in that. And I think as the season went on, he actually slept one night and his left shoulder was sore. I'm glad he wasn't on his right shoulder, but he slept and it was sore. And then after that is kind of when that took off with 3 weeks left in the season. The nice part about him being ambidextrous is we got an extra inning out of him most games. We had him and Cal Steven. They threw about 6 or 7 innings a game, and he'd be at 90-something pitches right-handed and 20 left-handed. So you could, we don't usually go over about 95, and he was able to, be able to go back out there because of both arms. But what a special talent and an incredible kid. His story is, through all my years of coaching, getting to see him, get to that point and really mature and learn how to pitch, because he wasn't much of a they drafted him out of high school as a shortstop, switch hitting shortstop. And I thought he was going to sign, and he was in the locker room the next day. I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, I want to pitch. And I said, "All right, you can pitch." And so I'm glad he did. So.
Yeah. And then you mentioned Steven, that's about as big of an arm to get out of the portal than anyone else. A really good performer at Purdue, and he just comes up and lights up the SEC for you guys. What was it like having him on the squad, and what his attributes did for you guys?
Well, not knocking Cal at the time when he came out, there's so much competition for players. His numbers were just okay coming out of Purdue. And I think that the one guy that our new pitching coach, Justin Parker, really helped was Cal. Cal will tell you, there were times when they revamped the whole delivery, and really you could see where those fastball analytics started to go through the roof, and he developed a really good breaking ball. But Cal Steven, there's nobody meaner and tougher than college baseball. And that's what he brought to us, this real hardworking Midwest country kid. But he was mean. I mean, you didn't talk to him on game day. You didn't joke with him on game day. And we didn't have that as a pitching staff. So him becoming the leader of that whole group, he helped Saint-Che. Durangelo, he needed to see that in front of him, because by the end of the year, Durangelo didn't want to give me the ball either. It was – you try to go get the ball from Cal Steven, good luck. We actually had a fight in the regional. He was pitching in the regional, 97 pitches, and Parker told him he was out. And they take these little rubber balls and they keep their arm loose in the dugouts now. You've probably seen them. And he just kept throwing his rubber ball. Then he came down to me, and I told him he was out, and I heard one rubber ball splat on the wall, behind me. But he was just such a competitor. You just don't get many kids. And he's got a chance to pitch for a long time. just because of work ethic and toughness.
I am absolutely with you on that too, and I really like the 2-pitch mix as well. Moving on to the bats, Dakota Jordan. First off, Jared wanted to ask this question, but I think I'll take the cake on it. What is the longest home run you've ever seen him hit, either BP or in game?
Man, it's a story everywhere you go. He actually hit one. We were at Arkansas, and it probably wasn't the longest one, but it was like one of the most impressive swings. It almost hit Dave Van Horn's office up there in the corner, and just a really crazy swing. Oppo. I haven't coached a kid, and I've had a chance to coach a lot of great kids and great athletes. That's about as athletically gifted of a kid because he could really throw. Mm-hmm. He was 4-0, 4-1 down the line. He could. The problem is in our scrimmages, we could never get him out. That I think a little bit of the strikeouts and everything built on the, I wouldn't say, but it's a little bit of draftitis maybe, right? Like just trying to do too much. He was another kid like Durangelo. We signed him for baseball, but he also was going to play football here. Mm-hmm. So he hadn't played the amount of baseball that most kids play growing up. So there was a real learning curve for him here. Learning how to play and then jumping on this stage as a freshman and doing what he did. And then last year, those numbers were incredible. But I think he's got a chance to be a really sneaky pro once he just gets to go out there and play the game. And you don't have all this crazy – because he was being sophomore eligible killed him, I thought, because he probably needed another year of maturity. Not for us to wing – I'd like to have him back in my lineup too, don't get me wrong. But just for his development, it'd have been nice if he had another year because he needed to acclimate a little bit more.
That definitely leads to my next question about the sophomore eligibility. Do you think there should be a change to that moving forward and maybe just have it strictly 3 years?
No, I don't. I think, I'm not a big believer on the age that scouts use. It used to be huge because the minor leagues were set up so differently. But now, these kids are getting there so fast and there's not as many stops on the road. So I have more of a disagreement on how, and I know age is important, don't get me wrong, but I don't, because sometimes we get them because they're sophomore eligible. I had the 3 big ones last year. I had Durangelo, Dakota, and David Mershon, and all 3 had great years and all 3 signed. We're not as big of a portal team, but we had to go a little more portal because we didn't think we were probably losing all those kids. Even halfway through the year, we weren't sure. So, but I sometimes you get them to come to school because of the sophomore. We had Will Bednar, right? We've had some big sophomore eligible guys over the years.
Gotcha. And then just the last question, some of the freshmen that you got to campus this year, how have they been this fall? Is there anyone that's really stuck out for you personally?
Yeah, we got we actually have a little shortstop, Lucas Buckner, who is I think he's a Tennessee State hits leader or whatever. They want to, he's from Farragut. Dad was coach at Farragut. He's been really an impressive player this fall. Kind of shocked me. I wasn't sure what we were getting, because he's a little bitty guy, but he can really move and play and just, got ball player. We have 2 freshman arms that have a chance to be really good. We have a bunch of them that have a chance to be good, but Charlie Foster from Georgia had a really good fall. Left-hander, 6'3", 92, 93. He's touched up to 95 here. But just really knows how to pitch, and it's a good 3 pitch. And then we have another freshman, Duke Stone, big 6'6" right-hander, who's been 92, 94. But it's long and lanky. It's like 7 feet of extension, when it comes out. So you're getting this crazy analytical guy that can really sink it. So they've had – those are just a couple of the guys. We have like I said, we have some of the better JUCO guys in the country and portal guys, like this mix of these guys, and we lost a couple in the draft too. So, Dante Nori went in the first round and Conrad Kaysen signed for $1 million something. So we lost a couple in that process too.
I was saying, I'm thinking the 25 class, like as of right now, just working on the prep ranks, we're going to have 4 of your guys in our rankings when they come out.
Take them out. Bump them down. I don't care if they're watching. So I actually had them all on campus this last weekend. It's a fun group, so. But I arguably, I don't know if, you look at some of the rankings, we don't have as many players as everybody else. A lot of teams will have 20 or something. We have I think we have 12 right now. But we feel like our 12, if you look at what they're ranked as high as the first class in the country just because we don't have as many guys. It's a really top heavy group there. So.
Absolutely. And then the Parker twins too, like those 2 to me, feel like the guys that have really done a lot for their stock this summer. But just talking from your experiences with them, how have they been with you guys?
They've been committed for about 3 years. So, being able to go through everything with them, and they're Mississippi kids, Mississippi State family. They're up here every weekend, boots and blue jeans and baseball is kind of what they like to do. So, they're a really close group of kids, and they've gotten better. They just like to play the game.
I love that. One thing I really like to dive into is kind of coaching philosophies and how you've developed that over the years. I think the one thing that really impresses me with yours is you really focus on the human beings outside of the baseball player. So what are some of the core values that you emphasize to your team, both on and off the field?
Well, I think one big one that we've always talked about is the game sees everything, and it's just not being a great hitter in the box. It's about how we do things in every phase of our life. So playing the game the right way, living the right way, being a good teammate, all the pieces. I think that's a trademark here that, I came into a program that probably had the best head coach in college baseball history, or one of them. And when I say that, maybe I rephrase the best players coach maybe in college baseball history, because Ron Polk, this guy he's still involved in these kids' lives. He's involved in my kids' lives every day. Like, he's picking on them most of the time, but he's there and he's involved and he's writing their birthday letters and their, all that type of stuff. I have the opportunity to see that every day and how much, impact he's made in their lives year after year after year. So I think that's when you talk about great head coaches, he was one of them.
I love that. That kind of segues into my next question, because you kind of talked about the mentorship he had for you, but who have been some of the biggest coaching mentors for you, and kind of how have they influenced your approach?
Well, I got a chance to play for Chalport, and Chalport was a Hall of Fame coach, but he was mean and tough and fundamental and everything else, everything you think you'd get at a military school, right?
Yeah.
And then I transitioned over. I played a year for Freddie Jordan, and then I coached with him for 12 years. And he gave me the opportunity at a young age to do a lot of things. And I was on the staff. It was me and Dan McDonald were the two assistants at the time. And we learned a lot. We messed up a lot of things probably too, but we were able to do a lot. And we did it for a little bit of money, but a lot of fun, a lot of effort. And, it taught you how to work. And then I think, like I mentioned it earlier in the podcast, but, those 8 years I was at Louisville, that was really impactful for me, because when you come from, I was at a mid-major and a very unique mid-major that, to get there and learn to recruit against we're at Louisville, we're a Big East school, and we're recruiting against everybody in the country. And, when we left there at the end of that 8 years, and even since there, it's one of the winningest programs in college baseball. And it wasn't when we went there. And so learning, not just from Dan, but like Roger Williams and just getting to learn from some different people, that was a really impactful time for me.
Yeah, I love that. The other question I was thinking of too, player development at the college level has kind of changed a lot with like new training tools, data and analytics, and technology. For you, how has that really changed the player development approach as you kind of get guys ready for the pros or whatever their next step in life is?
Well, the one nice thing is we have everything.
Yeah.
But how can you take everything and put it into teaching? I think that's our biggest. We ask that question all the time in the office. And I have, my assistants here, Jake Gotro, Justin Parker, Kyle Cheeseborough. We use it all, but we really, truly like to have, a nice blend. And I don't want it to be all analytical. I don't want it to be all like, there is a point when you got to step on the rubber with that ball in your hand and nobody gives a hoot what your spin rate is or anything else. Like, you have to compete and get guys out, and same thing offensively, But we're able to use, it's funny, Jay Gotro, who's one of the better hitting guys in the country, I go in and we're using farm boards and water bags and things that we didn't use 6-7 years ago, and they help, and the kids like them, and so I just think we try to tool ours into just, each individual kid. How does it, some kids take a little bit more, some kids want a little bit less. My first year here, I had Ethan Small, and he was the national pitcher of the year, but he would not look at a scouting report. He wouldn't do anything. Like, Ethan, you want to watch LSU? Like, no, I'm winning tonight, coach. Don't worry about it. Like, then I had JT Ginn, who JT's in the big leagues right now. They're both still pitching for a long time. JT would come in and spend 2 hours, and JT's the analytical mind. And so every kid's a little bit different. And he was the national freshman of the year that year. So you had, the two of the best pitchers in the country, and they were so different, from a mindset and mentally how they prepared. So I think, I had to hire a new pitching coach a year ago, and I spent a lot of time with Justin Parker trying to figure out, and a lot of pitching coaches across the country I interviewed and looked at our staff and what our staff could do. And I learned a lot in that process of trying to figure it out and what we wanted. And I wanted a blend. And I think that's what we got with Justin Parker he understands all the analytics and we use them, but it's not all about analytics. You got to have an edge. You got to be a competitor. You got to, you got to want to work. And I think those are some of the things our assistants bring to the table.
Yeah, and I enjoy hearing that too, because I think you can kind of relate that to the scouting side, right? There's this kind of battle between analytics versus like being in person, actually seeing the kid play. And the best teams that find guys blend it together and they wind up having more success. So it's kind of
the worst thing that I hate to hear is like RBIs are just a product of you being lucky somebody's on base. And I'm like, I just sit in my seat too long and you'll realize some guys just play better when the guys are out there, and
yeah,
you get that. I do agree with that because I guess I'm old now, but I have a kid coming in this weekend that I recruited his dad. So that's officially when you get old in this business. But, that's a big point of just, you got to be able to do both sides of it.
Yeah. Tyler, I'll turn it over to you if you have any other questions before I get into my last couple.
I don't think I have another big question on my mind that's like a necessary one, if that makes any sense, because I've already missed up asking you about the 25s.
Yeah.
No, you're all right. Well, we're not going to show it till then. Just exit out, right?
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
I was gonna kind of build off of the recruiting a little bit. So, what are some of the qualities you look for in players that you're trying to bring into the program? Guys are going to play in the SEC, play at a high competitive level. What just personality-wise? What are some of those qualities that you're looking for?
But it's and now we're going to this 34-man roster, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just to be, if you bring a freshman in, you have to feel like you're going to get some production from them right away. I think toughness is one, but it's hard to gauge toughness. At least now that recruiting's a little later than it used to be, you get to know the athlete a little bit better. You get to know about them a little bit better. But it is big tools a lot of times. I mean, I say this to I just raved about my 5'7" shortstop. But the reality is I tell my recruiters all the time, like it should look like spring training. You know, like it's, you're looking at bodies and how bodies move and how fast they are. And same thing with the pitchers, I think that's a big piece of it. You're trying to find some projection in there, because I think you look around our league and I think 2 out of the last 3 years, Charlie Condon and Wyatt Langford are first rounders and they redshirted, but they had tools in there, you just had that. They just weren't totally ready as a freshman. And then they, blossomed, in time. That's what you're hoping you get somebody you can make better over time. So.
I love that. Yeah. The last question I'll ask here, just because I kind of asked this to all our guests, so people can get to know the person outside of coaching, outside of the player. So what are some hobbies or interests you have that you pursue to help recharge, to get your mind off the game sometimes?
I like to golf, so I get in trouble. But the bad thing in Starkville, Mississippi, if I'm golfing and we don't get a recruit, it's on a message board and everybody's yelling at me. So I'm supposed to work 24/7 here, but I do like to golf. I'm actually, we finished Sunday and I've went and hit balls the last 3 days. And I make sure when I walk in, I let everybody know we're off the field and recruiting, we're at the signing date and everything else. But actually over the next couple of weeks, I'll hook up with my buddies and take a golf trip here and there on the weekend or do something. That's, and I actually never played a lot until COVID. And then COVID hit Starkville, and it was the only thing you could do. And, we'd go walk the course every day and that's what we did and talk baseball as the coaches. And now we all like to play a lot, and I've enjoyed it. So, but there's not a lot of time for this new world we're in with portal and NIL and, the little situation we're going through right now sucks.
Yeah.
Right now, hopefully in a year when all this goes through, but, taking everybody down to 34 in time and cutting this is just a really, really tough time in college athletics. And
that was actually going to be one of my other questions
for
too.
Baseball, because they're not giving us a period of like, all right, next year a little bit, then the next year they're just saying be at this. And really and truly, I don't know of another sport that was cut. Mm-hmm. Everybody else actually got more.
Mhm.
in this. And then baseball got cut because of Title IX. And, all the women's sports, they got more players, because they're trying to equal out football and everything else. And so for us, it's not, not a fun time. I like developing guys, and I want to have guys here I like the kid for 3 or 4 years. I mean, I like to get to know him. I don't mind portal guys either, but it's changed a lot in a couple of years.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, is kind of how like the portal and all these other rules that have kind of changed have impacted how you coach, but also how you build teams, right? Because before, I worked baseball ops at the University of Nevada, like way back when, and you had guys for 3 to 4 years basically. And so your team,
you'd have them for 5 sometimes. And so now it's I think the key is to be old. So if you look at us, our 25 group is smaller, our 26 group is smaller. Even this group, the 25 group, and we could lose, a couple guys in that, so you do have the portal to back you up a little bit, but I don't want to rely the portal's hard anyway. It's not easy. You just think I tell our fans all the time, it's not like the grocery store. You're not going in and just getting a left-handed pitcher, and all right, we plug in here. He may not come until 2 months later in the summer, so the timing of how everything comes and what you get, and it's just hard. I'd rather sign it. We've always been great with high school kids, and we'll always have some portals, but you're trying to find that happy balance in there,
Yeah, because I think you think about like winning championships, team chemistry is so huge, and if you're having constant turnover, it's almost hard to develop some of that team chemistry.
It is. And like even this fall, we played UAB. We drove up the night before, which is only a 2-hour ride. We never stay overnight. We took them to Tofkop. We took them out to eat. We put them in the bus. Everybody had a bus assignment because I wanted an old guy with a young guy. And then in the hotel, I had an old guy with a different young guy. And you're just trying to blend your team so that there's no cliques or anything inside your team, and trying to get everybody to know each other. And we had a guy throw like the first week of the fall. And, man, this guy's going to help us. What's his name? Like that's the point we're at when these, when you're dealing with some new guys, and you need to be close. Like last year's team got really close. And we had a tough first 10 days, but it really bonded us, and then it made us tough the rest of the way. We were really good down the stretch.
Yeah, I love it. Coach, we can't thank you enough for providing all your insights, coming on, just spending some time with us. I know you're busy. I know fall's wrapped up. You're probably looking for some downtime, but we appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Thanks, guys. We appreciate it. I spent a lot of time reading y'all stuff too. So y'all take care. Hail State.